What's up, B Squad? It is your boy JB, and we are here today with a brand new season of Bel-Air. So I did not review season 1, but we're going to see how season 2 plays out on the channel, and we're going to go from there. But this is season 2, episode 1, a fresh start, you guys. So before we go ahead and get into this review, if you guys are watching this video or any other video on the channel and aren't subscribed yet, do me a solid favor and stop taking me out on this date and having me pay for it at the end of it. Do me a favor by subscribing to the channel, liking the video, turning on your post notifications, and sharing the video. And with that out of the way, without further ado, let's discuss Bel-Air, shall we? All right, you guys, so I actually binge watched season 1 of Bel-Air very recently, and I fell in love with the show. So it's a really, really great show. I knew that when they were talking about this show that it was going to be a drama, right? I knew that. But I still was like, I felt like they were going to be trying to do a remake of The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. But so far, it is really good. I have enjoyed the first season, and now we're in season 2, right? So we see that Will. So if you guys didn't watch last season, go watch it. The way that it ended, it was really interesting how they ended last season. They ended it on basically a cliffhanger, because the situation with Will, Uncle Phil, and Aunt Viv, even with Vi, it wasn't a good situation because Will had found out that, you know, they had basically lied to him for years about his dad, Lou, who was portrayed by Marlon Wayans. They had lied to him for years about him. They told him so many stories about, they told him stories about Lou, but Lou actually ended up in prison. And he got out of prison and he met Will. Things went left with him and Will, right? And so Will eventually left the house because he got upset with Uncle Phil, because he found out that Uncle Phil didn't really want Will to find his dad, right? But he had Jeffrey help him, and Jeffrey found him, gave him the information, and that's where we are, right? So Will eventually left the house. Everybody was worried about him, and now we see Will got, you know, he's walking around with a wad of cash. And I was like, what is Will doing to make this money, right? So we find out that at this point, I think it's 2 weeks later, right? So Will is talking to everybody. He's talking to Hillary, Carlton, Aunt Viv, and Ashley. But he's not talking to Uncle Phil at this point, right? So I like this show because it's so much different than The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, right? And that's one of the reasons why I didn't get into it last season, because I was thinking about it. I was like, you know, I was a huge Fresh Prince fan, so I was like, I don't know how I feel about this, right? But I love how they did this show. The situation with Carlton was a little asshole in the beginning of the season, but then by the end, you saw who he really was and that he was struggling with a lot of things, right? And the thing that just blew me with Carlton was the fact that he let that white boy Connor and his friends say nigga, and I was like, ooh, really? Then you have Ashley. Ashley is, I don't know what Ashley is, right? I know she's part of the LGBT community, but I don't know if she would consider herself lesbian or bisexual. You have Hillary, who is a social media influencer and smart, unlike Hillary in The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, who was a complete airhead, right? And, you know, you have Aunt Viv and Uncle Phil and Jeffrey. Even this Jeffrey is completely different from the Jeffrey that we had in The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. But yeah, so I said all of that to say the show is definitely miles different from what we were used to with the show Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and I enjoy it, right? So we see Hillary. So if you guys don't know, but last season, so like I said, Hillary is a social media influencer. So she cooks, and she went to this influencer house. And this was the first time that I had ever heard anything about an influencer house, where they take these social media people and put them in the house and they make their content, right? So the guy, Kylo, you know, he was when Hillary wanted to leave, she owed him a kill fee, right? And I think it was a lot of money, right? So she partnered up with Ivy, who was portrayed by Karuchi Tran, right? So she is now, they found some stuff that was going on with Kyla, that he was behind on some bills and whatnot. So they were able to buy him out of the influencer house, right? So now Ivy and Hillary are partners in that, right? And also, it is going to be Ashley's 13th birthday. It's so interesting because Ashley's 13th birthday on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, that is when Tevin Campbell came. And same for her. But let's pause here and move forward, you guys. So Will is also staying with Jazz, and I love how they wrote. I like how they wrote Jazz in this series as well, right? Because Jazz, and it's so interesting because Jazz and Hillary in The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Jazz had a crush on Hillary for years, and she never gave him the time of day because she was always fawning over what was his name, Trevor. Trevor. Oh, the way she used to say Trevor. So it's interesting because in Bel-Air, we see Hillary and Jazz having a relationship with each other, right? So Jazz is talking to Will about the fact, like, yo, bro, you coming in at 1 and 2 o'clock in the morning. And, you know, Will, like, I got a curfew or something. He's like, it ain't that you got a curfew, but my dude, you living with me. Respect my place, right? So we see as Carlton, he came and picked up Will, and it's really, I love how we went from Carlton and Will season 1 in the beginning, hated each other, fought each other. Carlton even wanted Will to go back to Philly at one point, right? And they were trying to keep, you know, the secret from Carlton, but he eventually found out the situation between Carlton and Will and Lisa. It was a lot last season, right? So we see Carlton. So like I said, Carlton is driving Will. They're going to school. So Will hands Carlton some money. And Carlton's like, where are you getting this money from, Will? And he didn't say anything, right? So they finally get to the school and he tells him that he's been hooping, right? And Carlton's like, but so you're basically reverting back to Philly, Will? Like the stuff that got you sent here in the first place. So Will has a plan. So Will has a friend that he's dealing with. His name is JB. And JB is going to help him get in contact with this guy, Doc, who can help kids get to D1 schools and then get to the league, right? Because, you know, he was getting scouted when he was out there in Philly. But since he's been in Bel-Air, he's not really getting scouted because you got to compete with these white boys, right? So that's that. So then we see Uncle Phil. So Uncle Phil is getting ready to go back to the office. So if you guys didn't, again, if you didn't watch season 1, Uncle Phil was running for DA. And he eventually dropped out of the race because of Lisa's, you know, things that were happening with Lisa's dad. Because Lisa's dad had found out the strings that Uncle Phil pulled to get Will out of jail in Philly and moved to Bel-Air, right? So Uncle Phil just dropped out of the race. And so now Lisa's dad is running. So Uncle Phil's going back to his law firm. So where we at? And Aunt Viv. So Aunt Viv is doing an art fellowship. And, you know, Uncle Phil is talking to her about this interview that she has coming up. And he's like, I know that, look, she said it's very hard to be happy when Will is not home. And you heard what Ashley said about her birthday. So Ashley, with her birthday, Ashley told them she doesn't want gifts. She asked them to donate to a charity of her choosing. And she said, Black Girls Rock, right? I don't know. I mean, I don't know what Aunt Viv meant by you heard what Ashley said. I mean, I think that's a great thing that she's a 13-year-old. She's about to be 13 years old. And instead of her wanting gifts, she wants people to donate money to a charity. That's far beyond her years, I personally feel. But I want you guys to tell me what you think, right? So Aunt Viv feels that Uncle Phil should apologize to Will. And I'm going to say I agree with her, right? I know what Uncle Phil meant when I know why he did what he did, right? It's so interesting because I feel, you know, because I can put myself in Uncle Phil's shoes, right? Because my best friend's daughter, I felt, you know, her biological father, he ain't shit, right? He's not my favorite person, right? And, you know, my best friend, she's done things to protect her daughter over the years when it comes to him. And I haven't been, you know, there were some things that she's done and I'm like, why would you, and I've said, Why did you do that? Why didn't you tell her the truth? But she wanted to protect her daughter, right? And I understood it, right? So with Uncle Phil, I get the fact of not wanting Lou around Will to protect Will, but Uncle Phil, Vi, and Aunt Viv, y'all should have at least, once Will got old enough to comprehend things, I feel that you guys should have sat down with Will and explained some things to Will about Lou. Because I mean, once Will finally met Lou, the real Lou showed up. Like, you can only show your representative for so long. And when, like I said, when Lou showed up last season, yeah, Lou wanted to, Lou wanted to talk about, he wanted to, get to know his son and get to know his son. But at the same time, when Lou started talking about who Vi was and what Vi was, that's when Will was like, wait a minute, bro. You're not gonna disrespect my mama in front of my face. And then him and Will got into that whole argument. The young man that plays Will, I want to say one thing about that young man. He is a great actor, right? Another thing that I want to say about this show, the casting. Whoever did the casting for this show, these are some beautiful, beautiful black men and women. Like, you got Coco Jones, who plays Hillary. You got the young man who plays Carlton, like Uncle Phil, Aunt Viv, Vi, Jeffrey, Ashley, Lisa. Oh my gosh, this cast is beautiful, 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 beautiful. And I love the fact that they're all pretty, I mean, Will is a light-skinned guy, but Jeffrey is a dark-skinned man. Uncle Phil is dark-skinned. Like, I just love it. Aesthetically beautiful, right? Beautiful cast, right? So back to what I was saying. I do understand why Uncle Phil did what he did, but I just think that Uncle Phil, Aunt Viv, and Vi should have just at least sat down with Will and just gave Will the rundown of who Lou was. Like I said, Lou could only hide who he was for so long because that's the real Lou's eventually going to come out, and the real Lou came out. Let's pause here and move forward, you guys. So I did forget to mention, no, I didn't. So we see Will and Carlton. So they're at school. So Carlton is on the lacrosse team, right? He broke Connor's arm, and they're walking through the hallways, and the other team members are looking at Carlton funny style. And Will's like, "Ain't them your people?" He's like, "Yeah, they're not really rocking with him after he broke Connor's arm, right?" So Carlton wants for him and Will to kind of be like a dynamic duo, and Will looking like, really? Miles apart from you wanting to send me back to Philly, right? So then there was this young girl, she's portrayed by this actress named Rielle Downs. I know her because she was on this show called Henry Danger on Nickelodeon when she was a kid, and her voice was so damn annoying. I'm so sorry to say it, but her voice was annoying. So her name is Jasmine, and she spoke to Carlton, and Will's like, go holla at that. And Carlton's like, we don't have any classes together, so we don't naturally cross each other. And Will was like, I got you. So then we see Aunt Viv, and she's doing an interview for her magazine, right? And with the fellowship, she's talking about what her ideas are for the fellowship, that she wants to be there for up and coming black artists, right? Or artists of color, right? And I applaud what she wants to do, but I'm like, I don't necessarily know if that's what Reed is gonna go for, right? So then we see Will, right? So Will and Lisa broke up in last season when Lisa found out the truth about why Will was actually in Bel-Air, right? So they want to have a conversation. So he asked her, can she talk? Then she says no. He asked her what was she doing that night. She has some stuff to do with her dad, and she says, well, I'm going to Ashley's party. We can talk there. He's like, I'm not coming to Ashley's party. So she says, we'll eventually talk, right? So let's pause here and go ahead and move forward, you guys. So we then see Hillary. So Hillary and Ivy, so they are at the influencer house and they're celebrating, right? So Ivy has this drink that she's promoting, and she got like little cases, bottles of it all around, right? So they're celebrating. And if you guys watch season 1, when Hillary brought the people from the influencer house to the house for dinner, there were 2 black guys who are pranksters, right? So they're going with a different direction. They're getting all the guys out of the influencer house, but those 2 didn't know. And he was like, why didn't they know? I was like, that ain't my job. That's on you, Hillary. So he was like, so I got to break to him. She said, yep, smooches. So then we see Hillary. So Hillary is down at the record shop with Jazz. She's complaining about what is going on with Ivy, right? And how, they're supposed to be partners, but she feels like Ivy is pushing all the work onto her, right? And she doesn't feel like a boss. Because, Jazz, like a boss, got to do things that makes them uncomfortable sometimes, right? So then he also tells her that when it comes down to you and Ivy, you just need to set the tone with Ivy. And I agree with him, right? So also, Jazz is talking about him and Hillary going to Ashley's party together and letting it be known that they are together. However, Hillary doesn't want to go public with the relationship. And it was making me think to myself, are you embarrassed about the fact that you're into Jazz? I don't know. So we do see Hillary. So Hillary was talking to, nope, scratch that. We move over to Ashley. So Ashley is at school, right? And Ashley is being taught by none other than the original Ashley, but her character's name is Miss Hughes, Tatiana Ali. I was like, oh my God, look at her, right? So once the class was over, Miss Hughes gave Ashley a book, and this book is about the Black Panther, and more specifically, it's talking about the role that Black women played in that movement, right? Meanwhile, there's this little hating ass white girl behind Ashley just eavesdropping. I was like, you little, you don't want to say nothing negative about kids, do you, huh? Because I was looking at her like, I'm like, this little bitch finna go run and tell something, ain't she? But we'll get to that little bitch in a minute. So let's pause here and go ahead and move forward, you guys. So we move over to Carlton and Will. So Carlton and Will, so we see them, they went to join the Black Student Union, right? Now there was this one kid in there who was looking at Carlton like, you came here once before because you needed our vote for a student council and you didn't come back after that, right? So Carlton was like, well, the reason that I didn't come back is because all you guys do is complain about things instead of joining other organizations in the school to actually make the change. I was like, this is so interesting to go from the druggy Carlton last season, the one that was hanging out with Connor, who was saying nigga whenever he wanted to. It's really nice to see the side of Carlton, right? So the young lady, Yasmin, she is the president of the BSU, right? So she told Carlton, we like your ideas and we want you to continue to come back, right? And I was like, look at Carlton about to get him a girlfriend. You go, Carlton. So then we see Uncle Phil. So Uncle Phil, he is back at the office, right? And remember, I told you, he ran for DA, right? So he feels like he can, with his firm, he wants to do everything he can to give back to his community, right? And I like that, right? I do like that. I like it when people like this, make it out, right? And they don't forget where they came from. Now, granted, I will say that Uncle Phil, I do believe at first he forgot where he came from, but when he needed the help last season and he had to go to his his frat brothers, I think that humbled him and brought him back to who he was, right? And I like it when, even if that does happen, where our people, go on and become successful, they may forget where they came from at one point, but then there might be something that just humbles them and brings them back down and make them realize you weren't always who you are now, right? So now, I don't know if Uncle Phil's partner is really feeling what he's talking about, but we'll see, right? Now we move back over to Miss Hughes. So Ashley was walking through the hallway and she saw that Miss Hughes has gotten in trouble because I guess of her giving Ashley that book. Oh, ooh. So sorry, Miss Hughes, that little hating ass white girl. Ooh, shut up. Let's keep going, you guys, because I was about to get into that little girl. So we see Jeffrey. So Jeffrey is at, the school. So he and Will are talking, right? And, he was talking about Uncle Phil, how Uncle Phil is stubborn and all this kind of stuff, but that also applies to Will. And, again, I get that Will is upset with Uncle Phil for what he did. So he asked Jeffrey for some advice, right? Because he misses like, Hillary, Viv, and Ashley and Carlton, right? But things can't go back to the way that they were previously. And I get what he's saying. You can't you can forgive, but you will remember that y'all lied to me. So I get where Will is coming from, but I also want Will to understand that they weren't trying to hurt you. They really were. Uncle Phil, Aunt Viv, and your mom, they knew who Lou was. They just didn't want you to have to find out who Lou was, right? But at the same time, I think that they should have given Will that right to decide, does he want to get to know Lou or not, right? And we see where it happened. We see where it took us, right? So Jeffrey tells Will that you need to talk to your uncle, and I agree. I agree that Uncle Phil and Will definitely need to have a conversation, and I feel that Uncle Phil needs to apologize to Will. But I want you guys to tell me what you guys think down in the comments section below, you guys. But we're gonna pause here and we're gonna wrap up the episode, you guys. So after Jeffrey had his conversation with Will, Jeffrey went back to the house. He gave Aunt Viv a card for Ashley for her birthday, right? And he told Uncle Phil that he talked to Will, and he feels like Will is doing some things that are getting him back to why he was brought to Bel-Air in the first place, right? From the things that happened out there in Philly. So, something I thought about as I was talking about this, Jeffrey. So the guy that Will was running, that the guy that Will left Philly behind, he got killed in last season, and nobody's talked about that. But I believe that it was Jeffrey that orchestrated that man's demise. And we just have not mentioned that at all. I wonder if that's going to eventually come back up at some point. I wonder if that's going to come back up, because I remember the episode when it happened, and I remember Will was kind of, he was like, I wonder if that's ever going to come back up, but we'll see, you guys. So then Jeffrey also did apologize to Uncle Phil for overstepping in the situation with him, Will, and Lou, right? So we see Will and Jazz. So Jazz and Will, they're getting ready for Ashley's party, right? And Will is telling, Jazz that he just doesn't know what to say to Uncle Phil at this point, right? And again, I understand what he's saying. So Will got a call from his boy JB. So he tells him where to meet him at, be there in an hour. So he goes down there, and he meets this guy Doc. And Doc was like, yeah, I ain't really got time for you right now, right? So there was this girl, her name is Jackie. She has a dog named Fluffy. And, she gave Will a little bit of advice about how to impress Doc, right? So then we move over to the party. So everybody's at the party. Lisa showed up, and Viv asked Lisa, have you talked to Will? And she was like, not really, right? So we see Will. So there's the announcer lady, she was asking who wants to play against Big Dre. Nobody wants to play against Big Dre. But Will stepped up and played against Big Dre, and he won, right? So then he went up to Doc once again, and Doc told him, you did good, but I'm not looking for any new clients. That's gonna come back up in a little bit, you guys. So after that, Will and Jazz, they have to rush to get to Ashley's party because it's on a boat, and the boat is getting ready to leave. And everybody wants Will there, so Viv was like, just give it 5 minutes. But Will and Jazz do eventually show up, right? When they showed up, Ivy saw Jazz and she asked Hillary, is Jazz single? And she was like, no. She's like, well, I don't know. I'm like, Hillary, girl, if you want Jazz, get your man, right? So Will gave Ashley her gift, and we see at one point we see Uncle Phil. So Uncle Phil was off by himself, right? And Carlton came up to him. He's like, why are you avoiding Will? And he was like, I'm not avoiding Will. Yes, you are. But Carlton said, we're supposed to be here as a family, basically, right? So Uncle Phil eventually went up to Will, and Uncle Phil said, you know, we need to have a conversation. So they went down below deck and they had a conversation. And you know, Uncle Phil, again, like I said, I know what Uncle Phil's intentions were. He wasn't trying to hurt Will. He really was just trying to protect Will. And that's what he said. He was just trying to protect him. But his stubbornness couldn't allow him to apologize. But he definitely apologized to Will, right? That boy knows how. One thing about that boy that plays Will, that young man, he knows how to cry on cue. Every time I see him, every scene, especially when you know when a scene is gonna be serious because you can look at his eyes, because his eyes start to well up, and baby, he's great when it comes to those tears, right? So where we at now? So then we see Will. So Will, he and Lisa, they finally had their conversation, but Will eventually broke up with Lisa, right? And we see as Will, he moved back home with Uncle Phil and Aunt Viv, right? So we see Hillary. So she's with Ivy. Oh, I forgot to tell you guys. So Ashley's birthday party, they got Sweetie to come and perform, right? Yeah, I'm gonna keep my opinions to myself about Sweetie. I think she's a sweet girl. I think she's a cute girl, but rapping ain't for her. So, Jazz got a picture of him and Sweetie with what's her name's drink, Ivy's drink, right? Baby, Ivy was ready to, you know, she was ready to take Jazz down, and Hillary's like, "I'm sick of this shit, Ivy. This is my man." And she was like, "Oh, okay, girl. I mean, y'all cute together, so I'm gonna leave it to be." So, Aunt Viv. Remember, I told you guys earlier in the episode that, you know, she did her interview about the fellowship, but the interview, they just came and talked to her for no reason, because in the interview, in the article, they really just talked about Reed and nothing about what she said. It's all about Reed and his vision, right? So then to end the episode, Will got a phone call from Doc, right? So Doc is now interested in Will, and Doc has ulterior motives, right? Because Doc now knows who Will really is. He knows that he is the nephew of Philip Banks, the billionaire who was running for the DA. So this man now has some kind of ulterior motive, and I'm really interested to see what he wants from Will, or more specifically, Uncle Phil, right? Does he know Uncle Phil? Does he have a vendetta against Uncle Phil? Or is he trying to extort money? My guess is the latter, right? But I want you guys to let me know what you guys thought about this episode of Bel-Air in the comment section below. Subscribe to the channel, turn on your post notifications, and share the video, you guys. And until the next time, stay safe out there, take care of yourselves, wash your hands, be blessed, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.